Hi, folks. Yeah. I wanted to chat. I want to talk about the importance of having people in your life, or a person in your life, that can hold an emotional space for you. All right. And also some people in your life that can hold an intellectual space for you. All right. But emotional space is what I was thinking of right now. For myself to define in my life somebody who really is a significant player in my life, who I'd really miss, and I'd really, feel less, I would say, sort of, how can I put it? Just like I know that they're in my life, one or two people that they can hold, they hold an emotional space for me. If they weren't in my life, I would feel quite anxious. I'd feel very nervous and very worried, if you will, if I didn't have them. Maybe there's only one or two, in my proximity. Only one or two. That's it. And they're not necessarily friends. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's just somebody that I've known through over the years. You could call us friends, acquaintances, or something like that. Yes, friends. Sometimes we've been lovers. Sometimes, And I'd like to think. And they hold a space for me, but not as much as deep as I would like them to be able to hold for me. Okay, but they do hold somewhat of a space. Like, in other words, if I'm having a hard day, or I'm having an emotional time, and I'm going through some difficulties or even some joys, that they were able to understand what I'm talking about. It's not Greek to them, they understand it, and that means the world to me, more than in somebody who holds an intellectual space. Somebody is intellectual, that you can discuss intellectual things, you can talk about psychology, you can talk about esoteric, you can talk about astrology, you can speak about a lot of things with them, a lot of different interests, the mysteries of life, etc., which is great, and that's wonderful. But far more than that, for myself, I need somebody who holds an emotional space for me, who can emotionally understand me and what I'm going through, And that's what I'm saying, is that's how I size up who's the most important people in my life, and who's really there for me at the same time. No judgment on other people, okay? I mentioned Tabo, my friend Tabo, okay? He's a black dude from a rural village. He's been living with me for now a year. I've known him for about 8 years. He's a lot younger than me, so sometimes age does make a difference, but sometimes it doesn't. He's 27, I'm 37, okay? But I know some people, I've had people who've held emotional spaces for me when they were the age of 23, so it's not necessarily age. I think we do get better at holding emotional spaces and having emotional intelligence and depth the older we get, and the more experience of life that we have, and the more that we are open to life's experiences, that we actually grow. So yes, Tabo, so it is age. I'm not going to go to a 13-year-old boy or girl, whatever it is, and talk about something on a very deep emotional level, right? I'm not going to do that. They're not going to really understand what I'm saying. They're not going to really understand. They will. They're not going to really understand. So why would I do it? Okay, I'm saying, but that's on the same level. Is there people in my life that are 45 years old, or 55, 65 years old, whatever it is, 70 years old, and will not understand me on an emotional level? Okay. Now, I know that's a bit of a broad term, emotional level. Like, what am I talking about? Maybe I'll get into that a bit further. But, so for my friend Tabo, I realized that he's there for me practically. Practically, I need him. He's very good with his hands. He's like a bit of a handyman around the house, or whenever, on the road with cars and things like that. If we're setting up shops, whatever we do, he's good with that. And he's good to talk about business with and to come up with ideas and whatever it is. But he's not somebody who's good to talk about, emotional relationships that I'm having. Let's say I'm having a difficulty with my mother or my father, or people in my life, or whatever it is. He can't hold that space for me. Intellectually, sometimes we can talk about sort of existential things. We can talk about spirituality sometimes, but more and more so I found that he's not really interested anymore, and he feels like sort of it's bothersome, and it's too heavy on his mind, and he's like, look man, And before I don't even know if he held that space for me. He just didn't reply. He was just somebody I could, you know, his English wasn't great, so if I needed to express, I would just express, and he'd have to sort of grin and bear it, you know, type of thing. And so at least I processed it, at least I got a lot of that stuff out. But I mean, he can't, often of the time, let's say I'm talking about something spiritual, you know, or something conscious, whatever it is, he can't often of the time, like he can see what I'm talking about. I mean, the other day I was speaking to him about how you must be careful of, and I want to do a video on this, but how you must be careful of the surface of things. You know, he loves women, he's a big ladies man, and I was saying, you know, like on the surface of things, you know, the outfits that they wear, the wigs, especially the black ladies that they wear, can be very misdeceiving. It's pleasing on the eyes, you know, and on certain parts of the body, but it's not on the heart. I was getting to that, like with him with fast foods, because he likes fast foods, you know, he likes McDonald's, and I said it looks pretty, but it's not so pretty in going down, you know. So be careful of the surface of things, like be careful of money, you know. Money looks pretty, but it can bring a lot of trouble, right? You think it's going to give you a lot of money. So we'll talk about a lot of things like that. We'll talk about how, which I want to do a talk on, about how people on the surface of things and on the pseudo are being led into some kind of sort of hellish fantasy in a way, whatever, that's something else. So that's what with Thabo, and like I'm realizing that, you know, it's important to know that, okay, he can't really hold an emotional space for me. Is it because of his age? Not so necessarily, like I said, but also because where he is, it's no judgment. There's no judgment on him. But this is the thing, is that if I didn't understand this, I'd be very upset with Thabo. I would feel like, man, you just let me down all the time. I can't really rely on you emotionally or intellectually a lot of the time. Like, you just can't give me the space that I need, my man. And before I didn't realize this, I was in a relationship with a woman for a long time, and she couldn't give me the emotional space that I needed. Sometimes she could give me the intellectual space, sometimes, but like she couldn't give me the emotional space. And I tell you, I used to pull my hair out. I used to say, you know, and I didn't understand why. I didn't understand that she just didn't have the capacity to do it. She didn't understand what it meant to put herself in my shoes, to feel what I was going through, to understand it from a deep place, right? From a sensitive, like where it actually pulled on her heartstrings. It actually, like, she could really feel like my heart's broken for you, Aaron. My heart's broken for you. I see your loneliness. I see your confusion. I see your angst. I see, you know, whatever it is, and I'm there for you. I hold you in that bitterness, you know, in that solace, in that despair, in that grief. In a way, I'm with you. I know the depth of grief. I know the depth of agony, of loneliness, of despair, of hopelessness, of frustration. I know it deep in its being, in the bone. I know it. I know it. And I can be there for you. And maybe it's not even about her giving advice, but it's just standing in that space and helping me, you know, hold the weight of the experience of what I'm going through, the existential experience of what I'm going through. Maybe the death, the rebirth of something that I'm going through. Alright, through whether it's a realization of some kind within myself or the world or life itself, and it's just like, it's emotionally jarring, it's emotionally taxing, right? A realization like, oh my word, I haven't got any real friends. They've all been pseudo friends. It's all been convenient people. Or like, mom and dad haven't had my best interest in mind. They've also flawed human beings that a lot of the time were just, you know, didn't know what to do with me, or didn't even know how to be parents. It's like, you know, it's like, so in the process of growth, in the process of death, rebirth, and transformation, you know, and you want somebody there for you. You want somebody there for you, and you don't really get that. And they can't hold that space. I mean, she couldn't hold it, and I would feel like I wanted to shake her up and down and be like, you know, whatever it is, like you can spend 3 hours doing your hair and your makeup and your clothes, but you can't even give me 3 minutes of real presence, real presence, you know, real presence. And you know, folks, it's not just it's not just like, is this bird right here, hey, right on the balcony. I don't know if you can see it. Let me see. No, it's trying to catch a moth. I don't know. I thought maybe it was liking my energy. if you will. Let me see if I can capture it. It's right there. It's sitting on this chair outside. Can you see it? There, it's just flown above. Now it's on the floor. I was looking for the moth. Yeah, anyways. Getting distracted with that. Yeah, just like that's also your sensitivity, you know? Like let's say I'm showing you the bird and how it's chirping here, whatever's right next to me, and I feel its energy and I see its beauty. And I'm showing you and you'll be like, oh, you know, what's with that shit? Why? I don't care about a bird. You know, I don't care how, whatever it is. It's like, that's boring for me, man. Stimulate me, entertain me. But, you know, talk about sensitivity. You know, I don't want to hear about that shit. It's messy. It's boring. I don't even understand it. It's like gross. It's grotesque. I've had people where I've spoken to, you know, where I have about emotional, sensitive things, whatever it is, and they've laughed at me. They've laughed at me. You know, I've spoken about things about terrible environments that have been really, you know, unhelpful for me, or like just whatever it is, or problems that I've been having with that. People like, they look at me and they say, turn the other cheek, you know, whatever it is, or just not knowing how to be there for me, and it belittles me and it hurts me. It traumatizes me. It traumatizes me. I've spoken about this, you know, quite a while ago with that when I was having a really hectic time, and I went with that guy Prana. I don't know if any of you folks were, you know, have watched those videos of myself of where I was going through a real crisis, and I went to this retreat, and this guy, yes, he broke my heart. Like, he tore me apart. It was just, I couldn't believe the lack of empathy, you know, the lack of presence, the lack of space that this guy could meet me, that he couldn't meet me on. It was like, and I was so desperate. I was in a fetal position, you know, on his yoga mat basically, and he's like, come on, do this yoga stretch over here, you know, and I'm like crying, folks. I was crying. My stomach was in knots. I was like, you know, yeah. And this guy was like, if you just sit up straight, you'll see that the energy of your chakras will align and you will feel better. You know, and he was like sitting and try and do this and try to do that, and like all these poses, and I wanted to just smash him in the mouth, you know, type of thing. I didn't even have the energy. I was so drained. I hadn't slept for like 3 days. I hadn't eaten for I don't know how long, whatever it was that I was going through. And here's this guy trying to yoga poses. And that's what I'm saying. It can be so traumatic, so traumatic. So you've got to know who you can turn to in times of need, who holds that emotional space for you. If you have somebody to hold an emotional space for you. Some of us are so bad, or so unfortunate, I would say, or so challenged, you know, that we don't even have one person. We don't even have one person. And that's hectic. That's really hectic. And so we really got to pray for that. We find that individual, we find that person, if you will. Yeah, folks, not underestimate the need of somebody who holds an emotional space for you, who can understand you on an emotional level, not just an intellectual level, but an emotional level. They don't, again, even have to give advice. They just have to be present with you to share that space that you are feeling at that time. And so that's what I'm saying, is that know who you're dealing with. Know what you can expect from somebody. If they don't have an emotional capacity and emotional intelligence, then don't bother with them on an emotional level. You know, if they're intellectual and they can provide you with whatever, I don't know, the height of Mount Everest, and that's an interest to you, or the length of the Great Wall of China, whatever it is, knowledgeable in that sense, whatever it is, then fine. Right? But, I mean, like, I've seen that with gurus. I've seen that with people. I mean, you know, they're going to ask the guru a question and they're crying and they're emotional, and the guru doesn't have an emotional space for them. Just gives them an intellectual answer. You know, it'll be like, who is the one that's crying, type of thing. Figure out the one who's crying, and if you can figure that one out, because that's an illusion, then there'll be no more tears. And you don't see the guru, never see the guru coming up to the person and just giving them a hug, you know, because that takes so much from the guru. You know, that's an energy that takes so much of like opening yourself up and allowing yourself to be involved in somebody else on an energetic, emotional level. And you're going to feel tired after that as the guru, right? But And the guru doesn't, he'll just, that's an antidote, he'll just say, well, just think of who's the I that's crying, because there is no I. Your tears are an illusion. Your situation is just the thought of manifestation of the Maya. There is nothing really there. There's nothing to cry about. You're one with everything. You are God, him or herself in its essence and whatever it is. So, namaste, That's it. It's groovy, baby. It's all okay. It's all psychedelic, man. It's all psychedelic. I mean, I've seen that after ayahuasca ceremonies, whatever. People are broken down emotionally, and then like the shaman is there who's, whatever it is, and they like finish and they want to talk to him about the experience that they went through. They don't understand what's going on. And he's like, man, look, I'm going to bed. I got an early morning tomorrow, so, good luck type of thing. And, I saw there's a group of us, 20 of us, will never do that thing again. And like then, the next day we were also talking to one another. We said, yes, this is in the city. We're all going to stick together. We're going to exchange numbers, exchange emails. We're going to have a follow-up sort of just a discussion or whatever, get together in the following weekend after the ceremonies, whatever it was. Nothing happened. There was no further connection. There was nothing. There was nothing. Nothing. There was nothing. Because we don't know how to do it. We didn't want to do it, connect emotionally what we went through, discuss our traumas of what we experienced, discuss the healing of what we... No one wanted to do it. No one wanted to be interested. That was it. And so we are isolated. We are alone in the world that we live in to such a large degree. And if people think they're getting it over Facebook from their friends, whatever it is all bullshit. Because what you're doing is you're creating yourself an illusion, a space where you think that you have people that are meeting an emotional level, intellectual level, psychological level, whatever level it may be, and they don't, and they're not, and you are hoodwinked. You are living in an illusion, Neo. You're living in a Maya. You think your family is there for you, but they can't connect with you on an emotional level. You think your husband or wife is there for you because they were your wife, or they're your husband, or it's mom, or it's dad, or it's brother or sister. They're going to be there for you on an emotional level, but just taken for granted because they're blood and we've been through the same kind of things together in our lives. Forget about it, forget about it, forget about it. I can tell you people in my life, right, family members, I can tell you, forget about going to them emotionally on any level, or even asking them for 10 minutes of their time. They are so all over the show. They have such a short memory span or concentration span. Without their phone ringing every with that and their phone ringing every 30 seconds or 50 seconds, or whatever, some buzzing going on, and they're completely distracted. They're completely distracted. They don't have the presence to give me. They don't have the presence to give me. If somebody doesn't know presence, if they don't know peace, then they can't give you anything emotionally sounding or space. They don't know peace, they don't know stillness, they don't know acceptance, they don't know surrender, and many other things as well. They don't know patience, okay? They don't know sensitivity. They don't know love. They're superficial. They're living just simply from the head. The rest of the body, or the soul and the spirit and whatever the emotions, are all cut off. All it is just intellect. All it is just robot, right? It's just robot. That's all it is. Sadly enough to say, they're emotionally removed. They don't have the language of the soul, which is a lot of the time emotions of the soul. And so you've got to find people, if you can, find somebody who speaks their language with you and can hold that priceless space. Because no matter how much money you have, when you're in a moment of crisis or an emotional breakdown or emotional upliftment or something that's going on, or emotional despair, and you don't have one person there for you, doesn't matter how much money you got in the world, you'll still be brought to your knees. No matter how much people you have in your life, no matter how many friends you have, no matter how many barbecues you have with your family and your grandparents, whatever, if people aren't connecting with you on an emotional, they can't hold the emotional space for you, right? Then it's superficial, if you ask me, because I think that's where the real connection is made, on the emotional level, that they can hold a space for you, they can understand you emotionally, they can understand you as a human being, of what you've gone through, because they've gone through similar things, they have an open heart, they are alive, they are awake, and they feel, and they can relate to you, and that's true connection, that's true relationship, that is absolutely priceless, which unfortunately is a very, very unusual thing to find in the world today. It's very uncommon, it's very rare, right? So we've got to appreciate that, folks, and appreciate those in your life that can hold for you an emotional space. Alright, we'll chat soon. Take care.